Welcome to the real estate iceberg. In this video, I'm going to go over these 4 layers of real estate around the world. This list includes amazing places and events that have changed the world for the better, and it includes insanely horrible places and events that have inexplicably ruined many lives. Trust me, this is going to be a fun one. So without further ado, let's begin. This is the Infinite Wealth series. Welcome to the first tier. Real estate is fun. Let's look over our first entry, which is McMansions. Now, McMansions are these fun little ways of pretending like you're a very rich person even though you're kind of trash. Basically, these houses are built to look like mansions, but really don't have much substance to them. Now, how do I mean that? Basically, these are a hodgepodge mess of different architectural styles, designs, material, windows, whatever, doors, anything that can be put into a structure to make poor people think it's for rich people, or trashy people think it's for rich people. Now, if you own one of these, I don't blame you. It's kind of nice. They're cute little houses or whatever. Cute little mansions, really. But at the end of the day, it's not something like this mansion or whatever these massive mansions are. I hope I'm putting some photos up. But basically, go look at McMansion Hell. It's a great little community on Reddit that reviews these things and looks over them. It'll get you some better ideas. They also post some real good mansions in there. So yeah, check it out. McMansions are kind of weird but fun. Alright, our next entry on this list is Moon Property. Now, this is something that is just beyond understanding as to how insanely dumb humans really can be. Basically, this is a scam that has been around for over a century now, and people always seem to fall for it, like, hey, I can buy some property on the moon. Basically, sometimes people want to buy it as a gift for their kids, or some morons actually think it's a real thing. It's not. Don't get scammed. It used to be sold on the back of magazines for kids back in the olden days. Basically, ever since humans have realized that you can travel to the moon, they've been trying to sell property on there forever. However, you cannot actually sell moon property thanks to the Outer Space Treaty. Basically, no country shall ever own or be able to impart power onto a celestial body of any kind. And this goes for every country in the world. Now, basically, people will sell you this in the modern day. And in the modern day, this scam has evolved into selling you real estate, quote unquote, NFTs on the moon. So yeah, not really a smart investment over here. Alright, our next entry on this list is the homeless sidewalk house. Now, this is kind of an amazing situation. It's really where you can see human ingenuity being amazing. Basically, the situation in California is so bad and so unaffordable. There's a massive homeless epidemic going on right now. However, this man built his own house using scraps of wood that he found in the trash to build this little shelter for himself on the sidewalk. And I mean, this is kind of an amazing thing that he has done, because not many people could actually do this. He used to work in construction and now has built his own home on the sidewalk. It's a very cool situation, and it's just something that shows me that people are very able to survive and creative. We've come to a point in society where we basically can't afford anything. Like, everything has to be a subscription. It's getting pretty bad. But basically, housing is so expensive that people have now begun to live in tiny houses. I know this was a trend from a while ago, but it's still going on strong. This is basically an affordable house that people can buy for $25,000 to $50,000, and many of them come already ready built. You just need to pull them up like this video over here and get it set up. There are many different types of tiny houses. Some of them are very elaborate, some of them are cute little things, but basically this is a way for people to live in the modern world in affordable housing. Yeah, we're all kind of destroyed here. Alright, this might seem like a joke, but this is amazing. Beaver dams are one of the coolest creations that I have ever seen in my life. I mean, look at this. These little creatures are able to create these amazing architectural marvels in nature. I mean, what this really shows me is that beavers truly are some of the best builders in history. I mean, the idea of territorialism is massive within animals, which shows me that they'd own property if they could and if they understood what property was. But basically, these beavers in Alberta, Canada have created this 800-meter long dam, which is the biggest dam in the world that an animal has created. It is just truly an architectural marvel. They have little homes inside, they can have their kids in there, all that. It's just an amazing thing. Beavers are the coolest animal ever for their building properties, and ants are also very close, but they're tiny. Maybe they should buy tiny houses. Alright, this is amazing. The Great Wall of China. Now, it's not a conventional real estate type of thing, but it is an architectural marvel that deserves to be on any real estate tier list. Basically, this took nearly 2,000 years to be built, which is kind of insane because it was built in many different sections by different emperors in China. And essentially what this is it shows you an example of how large humans can build. Humans can build massive structures like the pyramids or towers in the modern day. However, thousands of years ago, humans built this miles-long wall to protect themselves from barbarians. This represents some of the best that humans can build, and I always will respect this marvel of creation, and I hope it lasts thousands of years to come. If you've enjoyed this video so far, please subscribe. Thank you. Alright, now that we just got over the real estate is fun tier, we're going into the next tier, which is real estate is just dumb. Basically, in this tier, we're going to be looking at some of the dumbest creations in the entirety of the real estate market, some of the scams, and some of the other weird things that are going on right now. Our first entry onto this tier is Florida swamp sales. Now, what do I mean by that? Basically, Florida is a massive state that has a lot of swampland on it, and swampland really can't be built upon. So, there's a massive real estate fraud operations going on all across America that are trying to sell Florida swampland as an investment, quote unquote, to unsuspecting morons. But basically, the land that these people buy is looked at as very cheap, developable land. However, it's just a swamp with some of the most unhospitable, horrible locations available and known to mankind. You can't build anything on it. It will sink into the swamp. Basically, this is insane, and a great example of people selling this can be seen in the movie called Glengarry Glen Ross, an amazing dramatic telling of this real estate salesman type of thing. It's a very good movie. Check it out if you can. But basically, Florida swamp sales are kind of crazy, and people are getting scammed by it daily. It should be illegal. It might be illegal. I don't know. Alright, this is something that will always be in every tier list for at least 100 years, and that is the 2008 real estate crash, or known as the 2006 to 2007 real estate bubble. Really, this had been a thing that was being built over decades before it even burst. But basically, bad mortgages, poor people, evil salesmen, evil banks, everything combined, it created one of the most devastating crashes in American history, one which we really still are recovering from. There are many videos that explain this, but essentially, all of the real estate in America lost a massive amount of value because of oversales, because of overvaluing, and people just lost their life savings. People got homeless. It was a terrible situation entirely. And ever since then, we've kind of been inflating the economy overall, and this is a global situation right now. However, a stupid situation like this should never happen again, right? Well, look at the housing prices these days. You think they're always going to go up? Yeah. Let's see what happens in a couple of years, boys. Anyway, don't be a moron and try not to get scammed. I don't know what else to say for this, but 2008 was terrible for real estate. Alright, basically, this entry on the list is kind of insane, but it's kind of has to be there because it is really dumb and should not exist, and this is squatters. Basically, housing has become so expensive since 2008, really, but in the last few years even more, that people have begun to steal homes. And you would think, hey, that's illegal. You can't do that. You can't steal a car either. You can steal basically anything in a lot of states in America and even Canada, and you can get away with it. Squatters have basically begun to live in houses that are empty, and they are starting to occupy these places, and they have a right to occupy if they lie about being a tenant, lie about a lot of things. But essentially, you can't leave a house alone for renovations or rent or anything before somebody jumps in and tries to steal it from you. This is a very dumb situation, and it really should never exist, but it does. Squatters should not have any rights. This is illegal. It should be illegal. However, I'm sure there's going to be half a moron in the comments down here saying squatters should be allowed to do whatever they want. There's something called tenant rights, and there's something called moron rights, and this is called moron rights. The way Texas and Florida handle it, there's not really a squatter problem there, so I don't know. Maybe the other places should figure that out. But anyway, this is illegal and should be criminal and whatever. Figure it out. Don't be a moron, please. Alright, this is one of the most classic things in American history. Well, more like American recent history, but this is Trump Towers. Now, I know Trump is a weird character for a lot of people. I get it. He's a kind of a, loudmouth, annoying person. But basically, these towers have been iconic for a long time, like the last 40 years, really. Recently, they've been more negative, but basically, these towers are massive vanity projects, really. A company will come to Trump, because his name is very famous, and say, we want to put your name on our tower so we can attract more visitors. And he would get a fee for that or whatever. He didn't really own many of those towers. The Trump Tower was just a brand, really. And essentially, the name was very popular, so people put it on their buildings. Great branding example, really. I mean, Trump was known as this real estate mogul back in the day. Now he's more known for, let's not mention what he's more known for now. But basically, this was a cool, iconic brand back in the day, and now it's kind of a social pariah situation. I don't really know what that means, but anyway, Trump being a moron ruined his brand a lot, but also built it up. I don't know. Figure it out. It's kind of weird. It's kind of cool. people, whatever. Now, this is a unfortunate situation that has continued on from the squatter problem, from really 2008. You can blame 2008 on a lot of things, but basically throughout California and other states in America, there are these homeless tent cities. People can no longer afford to buy homes. So this is a massive situational problem that has wreaked havoc on American cities. And basically there is a massive amount of homeless people living in tents, and there's so many of them that there is now tent cities. Yes, sir, massive cities where these people live. They have to live. They can't afford anything else. Essentially, LA and San Francisco are massive places where this happens. Here's a video from LA which shows this endless amount of tents going through, and the homeless situation has recently exploded, really, ever since COVID as well. People have just not been able to afford much. They can't live in an actual home. This is a terrible situation, and this is when real estate really is dumb. This should be solved. Homes should be cheaper. People should be able to rent or buy a place to live in. So homeless tent cities is one of the entries on this list. All right, we're entering a weird territory where we're going to have a bit of deja vu of 2008. I know we've mentioned 2008 a lot. Trust me, it's not going to be mentioned too much from here on out. But basically, China is about to experience a massively devastating real estate collapse, which may be bigger than the 2008 crash. Let me explain. The Chinese people have always been very frugal with their money and very investment oriented. However, the stock market and other such places of traditional investment have not been as good for China. So, what they've decided to do is invest into real estate. Many people own a second home. The amount of people that owned a second home in China was much greater than the amount that owned a first home. So basically, real estate was artificially blown up. Nobody was living in these houses. There's ghost cities, all these problems, and the construction was so shoddy that these buildings would basically collapse daily. I mean, I'm putting up videos of them behind this, hopefully, and you can see this was such a massive problem. Now, China did address it by creating this 3-dash rule where you can't borrow more than you can put in or the cash you have. It is becoming deflated. The problem is the Chinese government is trying to deflate the situation so it doesn't really burst. However, millions of people in China have lost their life savings, kind of like 2008. Their economy really is going through it right now and struggling. The Chinese situation looks really bad, and this could end up being terrible for a lot of people, including us. So here's hoping we don't all get destroyed by this. Alright, we are now entering the oh my god tier, which basically, I don't really have a name for this because these things are kind of crazy that they even exist, but they do, and you would be astounded by how amazing or weird or powerful they really are. Let's get started. Alright, this is one of my favorite pieces of architecture and human building in history, and it's kind of modern, really. This is the Kowloon Walled City. I know many of you know about this, but basically if you don't, this was a massively dense building structure thing that was built around this little area in China, Hong Kong area that used to be owned by the British, but then was supposed to be owned by China, and then paperwork messed it up, and it led to be the most densely populated city in the history of the world. It only came down in 1992 or 4, I believe, but basically there was a lot of bureaucratic oversight that let something like this exist. Basically, people would stack houses on top of each other, and this would be a much bigger building had there not been an airport nearby. But this structure was not just one structure, it was a bunch of little places all connected together in this maze-like architectural marvel, really. This was really a anarcho society that was very efficient and ran well. It was ran by a lot of the mob. It had its own shops, restaurants, homes. It was truly one of the most beautiful creations in history. It definitely did have to come down because it was dangerous. However, they had this little courtyard, they had a mini government to solve issues, they had security ran by the mob, they had dentists, they had everything. It's just truly one of the most coolest things ever. Kowloon Walled City, you will always be in my heart. I wish I could have visited. Looks amazing. Alright, this is kind of crazy that it exists, but it does indeed exist, and these are haunted houses. Yes, sir. Now, what does this mean? Basically, humans are really superstitious, and throughout history, real estate and architecture have been something that we have used to survive in. Well, if a home is supposed to be a warm, nice thing, what about a home where somebody died? Yes, sir. There are many places like this on the planet where there has been a death or a horrible occurrence has occurred, and people basically call it haunted after that. Now, haunted houses come in very many varieties. It could be a little shack in the village or in the jungle. It could be a massive house at the end of the street. It could be anything. It could be a haunted castle even, which we will get to soon. However, these places are superstitious legends in human mentality, and it it goes all over the world. I mean, people all over the world have talked about haunted houses, haunted buildings, haunted whatever. It's just abandoned property where people don't really go anymore. So it looks creepy, even though it's not necessarily haunted. I mean, there's endless amounts of shows built on this, endless amount of things. There's even a haunted cruise ship, which is kind of a cool thing. But yeah, haunted houses, it's a massive industry basically of entertainment now. And it's a cool little entry in the real estate iceberg. All right, now let's get into one of the more real haunted situations on the planet, and that is the real castle of Dracula, or rather Vlad the Impaler. Yes sir, this castle actually does exist in Romania, and it is one of the coolest things in the world right now. I mean, people don't really talk about this enough, but Vlad the Impaler really was a person who they based Dracula on, and he would impale people on his massive spikes and whatever. And just imagine this castle on this hill, and you're walking up to it, and there is a endless amount of people impaled on spikes on it. I mean, if that's not scary, I don't know what is. But you can see just how fantastical and crazy this part of history really was. I mean, people were scared of this man. He was kind of a king or a count or whatever he was. But basically, this is something that has become such a massive part of our modern entertainment lore and folklore or whatever, that Dracula was based on this real place, real castle, and it does actually exist. And the person who lived there did actually do a lot of the things that Dracula did, except for be a vampire, I guess. But yeah, really cool entry. I wanted to add this in because, oh my god, I don't know how to describe this. Alright, now let's go on to the final tier of this iceberg, which is real estate is evil. I know it sounds kind of dramatic, but the entries on this list are pretty bad, so let's get into it. Firstly, we're looking at Pablo's Island, and if you don't know already, this is Pablo Escobar's massive island, where his massive cocaine operation would come to be processed and go through to the United States. Basically, Pablo Escobar had an amazing business plan, which was sell cocaine, and it built its own demand and all that, blah, blah, blah. However, he had a funnel problem. Now, what do I mean by that? Essentially, there was way too much supply and way too much demand. However, he couldn't get it all through all at once because there was so much scrutiny by the war on drugs. So essentially, he'd have to build these crazy systems of delivering it. I'm going to put a map of his delivery routes on the screen right now to show you exactly how crazy it was. But basically, he would go through Mexico, he would go through all these places, and this island was an insane idea that he came up with as basically a refueling station for his planes that would deliver the cocaine. It's truly one of the craziest situations, and now this island has become legendary for what he did, but also for the fire festival. Now, they weren't actually able to do this fire festival on this island. However, it was just an insane situation, and this is just one of those crazy things where like an island has become folklore for this crazy guy who used to use it. And trust me, there's an island much worse than this coming up, and you probably already know, so yeah, let's move on. New York has always been a massive city, really a linchpin for business around the world. However, an underground system that really runs the construction in New York is the mob. And the mob really costs a lot of money to construction companies. They have a fee and you must pay it, otherwise the unions, the whatever, they will delay and destroy your construction. Now, the cost of pouring 1 square foot of concrete in New York is an astronomically high value compared to anywhere else in America and a lot of other places in the world. And this is mostly because of the mob. A lot of hands have to be quote unquote greased for something to go through. A lot of people need money. The mob fees are very expensive. New York is already a packed city. This is why buildings and all this sort of stuff costs a lot of money in New York. People need to be paid. And this is how things have always worked. New York is notorious for this situation. It is better now. However, it's still going on and it's still a very real and active situation. The New York mob owns real estate in the city and in a lot of other places nearby like Newark. Shout out Sopranos. Alright, this is the final entry in the list, and it is a sad entry, but basically evil does exist, and real estate and buildings and whatever is where people will do evil things on. And this is Epstein's Island. This is a sick and disgusting place that really should have never existed and hopefully will never exist again. Basically, this is a place where Epstein would take his victims and his friends and would cause a lot of bad things to happen. You all know the situation. It's very obvious. It's very clear. However, this situation was real and it should never have existed. But because he owned an island, nobody could escape. This really was a prison for a lot of the victims and a lot of the unfortunate situations that would happen here. Truly an evil place. I put this on the list because it is one of the larger real estate related, one of the larger private ownings of land situations that have happened recently. I know that may not make sense, but basically he owned a private island. He did bad things on it. There was crazy temple on it. It was pretty shocking. This is crazy. Real estate really can be evil in a way where people can do evil things on the land they own. Hopefully this doesn't happen again. However, it probably will. Now listen, I don't want to end this video on a low note, so if you made it this far, thank you. You are amazing. And here are a few architectural and engineering marvels of history that I enjoy. The Roman Colosseum, massive and amazing. The Eiffel Tower, a great beauty. The Burj Khalifa, the biggest tower in the world right now. The International Space Station, giving us humans a massive leap into space. The Egyptian pyramids, one of the best architectural marvels in history. The Library of Alexandria, rest in peace. Could have been amazing, but it got burnt into ash. There are many more than that I can't even think of right now. But remember, most of human creation is amazing and positive, and I can't wait to see what marvels will be built in the future and the coming decades. Please check out these videos and maybe subscribe. Thanks.